so again, we have online presence that are going to be joining us over the next few weeks. They're going to be catching up on the labs. And so we bring them into the circle that we already started. So the first thing I want to do is, just like in the meditation, I'm going to go into, and there's different entry points, but in the meditation we came in at the third eye, came to here, and we just develop a neutral. So you can spend quite a bit of time actually developing your neutral. He's already in process. As soon as you come into your space, the session's kind of started. So we've already started the session. Actually, we started with the intake. When I start talking to him and we get the observation, which we did in the circle. So I'm using that as our intake. So where I came in there, I'm connecting with that point in time. So he's already in movement. So for me, it's coming into the midline, dropping into the earth, grounding. And different people will need different exercises to do that. So whatever is your current best way to ground, that's perfect. Okay, and then take a second and connect down to the earth and be on the vertical in that infinite space. Now let the energy come out to the hands. Okay, so now these are my receivers. So the first place I'm going to receive isn't even on his physical body, it's more in his energy body. Okay, so, and even if I come straight onto the body and I forget, oh, I didn't connect to the energy body, the practice is, and then you just come back. You just say, okay, let me connect to the energy body, which for him it's right about in here. I'm feeling a strong presence, I'm already connected. So make your own connection, connect to their energy body, and wait for an invitation in. Just like if you go to somebody's door at their house, you knock on the door, and then you wait till they say, come in, usually. You don't, I mean, unless you know someone really well, then you can just come right in, because he's and I are good friends. But, you know, in a general way, that's the way you treat sessions. So there's an opening, so I just come in, and I'm going to place my hands on him. But I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do first, is I'm going to tune in, just blending. So I'm just going to, just like when you touch somebody, either right and left in the lab, and we just stayed in a receptive. So I'm just here, and I'm just going to hold and listen. And the next step is, eventually I'll tune into his midline, which I know my connection to his midline is through these vectors to his tailbone, to the top of his head. So I'm feeling that central canal of his spinal cord. So we all have a spinal cord, and we have our vertebral column, right, with the discs in between, and we have right behind the vertebral column, we have a hole that the spinal cord is in. And inside the spinal cord, there's a tiny central canal, about like this big, that's full of cerebral spinal fluid. And if you were a yogi, you would call that the Sushumna channel. Cerebral spinal fluid is more physical matter. Sushumna energy is more etheric energy, but it's condensated etheric energy is cerebral spinal fluid. So if you condensate the Sushumna channel, the presence of it is going to be cerebral spinal fluid. Okay, so that's what I'm doing, because that central channel of the cerebral spinal fluid is has such integrative potential in the body to integrate the whole. So I'm going to tune into that, and then I'm going to traction up that. So just like you descended down it in your meditation, you're basically going to be the ground, and you're going to ascend up it. And you take your time, and you might notice like the little areas that wobble, or little areas that are restricted, or maybe it goes this way, or that way, or back, or front, or to some angle, or spirals. So, and that's not the only way you can experience it, but however you experience it in your body, you're just there and moving up the central channel to the top of the head. Okay, and for now, we'll kind of stay in the body. If someone soars out the top of their head and you experience that, you can hold that space, but hold it in kind of a grounded way. So if they soar and you soar with them, in a way, you want to stay connected, because in a way you're their anchor. They're giving you their trust and safety. You know, your safety is kind of in their hands. You know, unless they raise their hand and say, that's too much. You're pulling too hard. always put it back into their hands. So in the beginning of the session, I would say to each side, if anything feels uncomfortable or doesn't feel right, I want you to let me know. In these sessions, you can say that, but it's already an understood statement. But it's a good practice to let somebody know, and it's a good reminder that you're open to feedback. And we won't take anything critical. We'll just take it as feedback for our learning. Okay. So first, connect. And then I'm just connecting and listening right now. And the other word they can use is blending. So we're blending. I'm feeling that space where my hands connect with his feet. And then the energy in that space. And I want to feel a clear connection and a clear distinction between me and him. So we're two separate autonomous entities, and we're the same. We're blended, and energetically, if you take it to the highest level, we're one. So just holding that space without losing the ground. Okay? So I can connect here because it's just easy. I just rest. And I don't have to do a whole lot. I can just be here. So from here, I want you to kind of go underneath and find a nice resting. So I'm connected. I have one foot, but you want to feel good and comfortable. Like I could stay here. I could wobble this way and that way. No problem. I can move a little. And even if it's like the tree going in the wind, the really tall tree. It's like if I move a little bit, it's okay. I'm not intentionally doing that, but it's okay. And intentionally, I'm just being here with him. And you can feel how much already someone gives you their energy and trusts you, because they just like let it go. Because if I went like that, he just falls. Or someone who he's going to hold this time. So someone who's kind of a little bit nervous, I go like that for a second. So we'll have clients like that. We'll have people that we pick up there, and they're like, okay, they're still holding on. Verbally, you can say, can you let go of that a little bit? But they're not holding on consciously. It's kind of non-conscious. So if you say that, sometimes they might think that they have to do something, which is like, no, don't do anything. Is the idea. So I can give them more of a suggested, through just like, I take some more of their weight, let it fall. Or lift them up a little bit less. So they're not, if I pick them up like that, they might really be like, okay, holding on. So that's how you kind of work with that. Okay, and then I have this, and I'm just gonna vector, what they call a vector. So I'm basically gonna put enough traction so that I make this connection to the base of his cranial floor, his tail, to the base of the tailbone. Because we have the sacrum and the coccyx here, the tip of the tailbone, and the cranial floor. So this is the bottom of it. So I'm just connecting to that point, and there's a ganglia, nerve ganglia, very, we call it the base chakra in yoga, but in the anatomy terms, in the dissection terms, it's the ganglia of Impar. It's the space ganglia. Ganglia is just nerve bundles. It's just a bundle of nerve bodies that are concentrated. So like it's a little brain, because that's what our brain is a bundle of nerve bodies. So traction to there, and even hold there. Once I get there, just stabilize. And then I'll traction up to the inferior mesenteric plexus, which is the next bundle of nerve bodies, just around the belly button. And then just above that is another nerve bundle, the superior mesenteric plexus.
Well, what do you mean by travel?
Huh?
Traction.
Yeah, I'm just tractioning up.
What does that mean?
Tractioning is just, so right now tractioning is this. Let me see. Okay, here. Here's his midline, right? And I'm at the feet, here and here. So I traction, take up the slack to here. Traction, take up the slack here. Traction a little farther, now here. I'm going to come here next. So I'm at the feet, up to there.
So with the fascia, you're talking about the fascia?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the fascia, but I'd almost rather have you think about the fluid. Okay, so you're going up the fascial line. That's the fabric, is the fascia.
Right.
Right? But but I'm using the fabric to kind of go into the Sushumna channel, the energy channel, the fluid, cerebrospinal fluid channel. Okay? And little by little, what if I did this? Here's the legs if I go like that. Right? Now I'm already here. Okay? And I just missed all of this. So I want to go up nice and slow. And get up there. I'm there now, but I moved up there consecutively. And I can even hold at the different ganglia. So one's at the perennial floor right here. One's behind the belly button. So we have all the intestines here. So we have a plexus here and a plexus here. Inferior plexus, inferior means lower towards the feet. Superior means higher towards the head. Okay, and then we have the celiac plexus here. And then we have the cardiac plexus here. And then we have the thyroid and the parathyroid here. And then we have the pituitary gland here, and the pineal gland here, and then the top of the brain here. So this is the crown chakra, because it opens. It's not necessarily a gland, even though Dr. Upledger named the centrum, which is something we found in Cell Talk, which is something I'll go into later, but they started talking to body parts, and they found a body part that hadn't been identified in anatomy books yet, but it was very present, and many people have the experience of it through dialoguing and other things. So that's the centrum. And really it's where the corpus callosum integrates right and left hemisphere. When it's fully integrated right left hemisphere, this little energy center lights up. And then the parietal bones start to open, and then the energy goes out the crown. I mean, we do this naturally, and the yogis talk about it in their own way, and the anatomists aren't quite caught up with the language yet, so it's still a good mystery place. But we know the pituitary and we know the pineal. Okay. So again, here, now just traction up the midline. And I'm doing it by just leaning back. And then I'll go to the top of the head. And here I can add a little more energy, and this is a nice technique. So first you're tractioning up, and then I'll just take the ankles ever so slightly, but it'll be continuous. It's just like if I do this. So now I'm creating what sometimes they call the half moon. So we're following the energy in like a half moon. And what will happen is it'll actually release out the head to a certain point, and then it'll bounce back into my hands. And I'm just holding that space. Okay. And we call this the midline. So now what I'm doing is I'm evaluating the midline. So what we'll find is evaluation and treatment are actually the same thing. I'm in evaluation mode and treatment mode kind of all the time. So in the evaluation is a treatment, because it's really a non-doing. It's the non-doing part of the treatment. Now I decide, okay, we have a restriction in this area here. You know, this is where everything came up smooth, but I noticed in this area there was a little bit of holding. I don't know what it means, it's just a noticing. So I got the noticing here in this area. So what I could do is come up to this area, put one hand behind it and one hand in front, and again, neutral, come down through the energy, and touch. And then just listen. So I'm just listening, and what will happen is I'll find that the body will start to do this, either from the bottom or from the top. There'll be some kind of movement. And now I just follow the movement. Okay, I know John talked about myofascial. It's a myofascial technique. So we're following the fascia, the tiny microfibers of fabric. This is a two-dimensional fabric. I'm a three-dimensional fabric, so I'm following all the fibers. And if you just listen, your hands will start doing it. And in the beginning and even at the end, the best way I think to do it is just watch your hands. And then your mind is like, oh, okay. And if you get into this mind like, I can't do this, or there's something wrong with me, then you're listening to that rather than this. So it's just to be like, okay, let's listen to this, let's see where the body goes. And he'll be experiencing his own thing, or whoever's on the table have their own experience. And a lot of times you'll think, oh, I didn't do anything, and they'll be like, oh my God, you won't believe what happened. I had the energy run down my leg and this, so that definitely can happen. Okay, so I would say start at the feet, do that, and then go to a few places on the midline and just listen. Okay?
And you're initiating a movement and then listening, or you're just listening?
I'm just listening. And I think the skill set, because almost all of us will initiate, even me at this point, after lots of training, will initiate a movement. So the skill is to back off. If we initiate the movement we just noticed, I initiated the movement, okay, let me back off and see what you, it's the same thing as the listening we did, where we listen, somebody says something, and a lot of times we'll relate it to ourselves and how we can integrate that experience. But it's just about like, okay, no, let me just fully listen where I don't know. So it's that same kind of psychological play, but you're doing it with your listening hands. Okay? And this is super easy. I'm talking about a lot of complexities of it under the microscope, but your hands already know how to do this. Okay? Every mother, every father, every brother, sister knows how to do this. So we did the feet, we're looking at the midline, we'll go to 1 or 2 points on the midline. And for now, let's keep it on one of the big chakras. So we'll keep it on one of the chakras. And then I'll come to the head, and I'll just gently rest the head in the hands like this. The first thing I'll do is just feel the weight of the head. Feel his breath, how there's movement with inhalation and exhalation. And really just be present that way with somebody. I can feel the heartbeat a little bit if I want. So those are nice ways to introduce it. Later this afternoon we'll start to feel the cranial rhythm, but I don't even want you to get into that unless you've already had some experience with the cranial rhythm. Just feel the heartbeat and the breath. Just be there with somebody. Otherwise you're too much trying to. Just a nice listening, letting them melt into your hands. And then once you feel that they're their energy is relaxed and grounded and they're let go, just traction slightly up the head. And now you're going to go down the opposite way, right down to the tailbone. And you're going right down the midline, right down the central canal. And if you feel the fascia and you feel the tissue, that's okay. But come into the fluid. That's it. And now you might feel a little pulse, you might feel a stronger heartbeat, you might feel a deeper breath, like many things could happen at this point. And then if they give you a little more, just stay right against the engaged point. And if they give you a little more, you just take a little more. So let me explain that again. So I'm tractioning down the midline like that, right? And then I'll be down there. I'm at the tip of the tailbone, and I'm just resting there. But I'm not giving up my traction. I'm just resting with the traction. Now I might feel like I'm still engaged. I might feel, oh, all of a sudden he gave me a little more. Just a little more traction. So just follow that. Don't give it up. What you gain in the traction, don't give it back up. Just stay with it. And then if it goes and opens up more, take all the way down to the end. Right? And we don't have to leave the body except to go into the half moon. Okay, so if the energy starts leaving and you feel that leave, don't just let it go and contain for now. And there's a time you can do that, but just let it kind of come up and find its own fulcrum. And actually, even if it feels like it's going out, it's just going for a longer fulcrum. It's going to come up like this at some point. And then we follow the energy like that. So we're in the tissue, but we're also in the energy body at the same time. Okay? So that's what we're going to do before lunch. So everyone And that's a full treatment because you're treating the source of all the body tissue in a way. So in a way, if you just take this one technique and integrate it into your whole practice, it's the one to take because it's the integrating the whole system. Make you excited.